Righto. This is an acknowledgement of the awards that the council have got for 3 new pedestrian bridges over the Avon River corridor. I'm pleased to acknowledge some awards that have been won by our council staff. Over the last 3 months, 3 new pedestrian bridges in the Otakaro Avon River corridor have picked up 2 awards. In August, Living Streets Aotearoa awarded the bridges a golden toe. I didn't even know we had those. But a golden toe for urban connection category. Then this month, the 3 bridges took out the 2022 Steel Construction New Zealand Excellence Award for the $500,000 to $1.5 million category. All the architecture, engineering, landscaping, planning and survey work was completed by our own talented council staff. Now this is very good. And the physical construction was undertaken by HEBS. And I think if anyone's gone over any of those bridges, they'll certainly agree with me that they're very, very good in every aspect. So I'd like to extend a big congratulations to everyone involved in this project with HEBS and us. So I think it's something that we really need to applaud.
So if our parks... So if our Parks and Technical and Design Services team colleagues would like to come forward, the Mayor would like to have a photograph with you. Are they not here? Come on then. Come on down.
You're hiding.
Which team are they from?
Parks and Technical and Design Services.
Come on down.
You'll probably be over this way. Okay. Can you just hold it?
Easy.
Well done, everybody.
Just have the camera on an angle so it looks like it's on the map.
It may make it a little bit fuller.
Thanks, guys.
So it's good to acknowledge all the good things we're doing, so it's great. Apologies. We've got no apologies, but I just say that Councillor Goff is joining us on AV because he's got a bit of a cold. Declarations, we have no declarations of interest, and we have 5 public forums, which will take a wee while, but we'll make our way through them. The first one is Eco Action. So I'd ask Dave Newton to come to the front, please. G'day, Dave. Good to see you again, and all your people.
We've just got a small pencil through all the councils.
Yep. I don't know if people realise the good work that Dave and his group do with Eco Action out at the red zone down in Chimera Place and at QE2 and stuff like that. It's well worth going down and showing an interest in what they're doing. It's fantastic.
Okay, so the format of the presentation is each of the students will say one of the screens and then step forward and step back, and then by the time then we'll take some questions at the end. So Thomas,
If there's time.
please. Just stay right, stand there. That's good.
Kia ora, my name is Thomas Curry. So, we are Eco Action Nursery Trust. Thank you, Christchurch City Council, helping us so we can help support our community.
Hi, I'm Lauren. This year we've had students from 21 schools and 2 community groups pot on and then plant out eco-sourced native trees into our red zone.
Hi, I'm Harriet. Eco Action arranges land to plant on from both Christchurch City Council and LINZ at QE2 in Chimera Crescent.
Hi, I'm Catherine. We have a successful history of planting in the QE2 Adventure Nature Trail. This is 2 years of plant growth in an area that we planted.
Hi, I'm Ollie Dutois. So Eco Action have planted 18,000 trees in 2022. We are hoping that in 2023 we're going to plant 30,000 trees, and in 2024 we're going to double that with 64,000 trees.
Hello, I'm Tony Philpott. We have 22 schools involved and 2 community groups, so thank you from all of us at Eco Action Nursery Trust. Some of the sponsors involved include the CLS Canterbury Landscapes, Christchurch City Council Parks Community Partnership, Enviro Waste, Isaac's Construction, Schools, Mainland Tanks, Tank and Drums, Lynn's, New Brighton Volunteer Fire Brigade and School Partners.
The financial summary, what value does Eco Action provide? Well, thank you very much for the $15,000 grant that you gave us that'll fund this year. We put that together with $21,000 that we got from other sources, and that helped provide us with a zero budget for this year. And the value, if you add the volunteer labour contributed plus the trees we planted, that resulted in $273,000 worth of value. Next year, you've given us $25,000, which zeroed out our budget with a $16,000 grant from other sources. And next year's value added to the Christchurch City is $374,000 for that $25,000 investment. And it gets better from here.
Hi, I'm Eliza. Social value, what does the Eco Action program provide our youth community? It can building community involvement and participation, and it's tackling the climate emergency through plants sequestering greenhouse gases.
Hi, I'm Ben, and just on the back there you can see some of the planting we've done at Cherima Crescent and also the QE2 Adventure Trail. Thank you very much.
Okay, so thank you very much for your listening to us. We'd like to take some questions directed at the students more than me, if you don't mind.
Sam, yeah.
Hey, thank you very much. That's a really remarkable presentation. I just wondered, given the value for money you provide the city in terms of the contribution we give, how much more would you need to deliver a lot more trees? Because you can plant them a lot quicker and cheaper than sort of we can. So how much more money, I guess, before you get to full capacity?
I think I better answer that question. When we started this back in 6 or 7 years ago, I thought I was doing quite well growing 50 trees. It's all about over delivering and under promising. We're fairly certain that we can deliver at 60,000 trees, 64,000 trees, okay. And we're going to hold that for 2 years just so that we are sure that we've got our systems in place. But you'll notice there is a large figure for not next year. We've zero budgeted again for next year, but the budget requirement for the following year to zero it out is 40,000. So we will be coming back to this forum at some stage in the future with our hand out, I'm afraid.
No, don't be afraid. I think it's good value for money. Yeah, thank you.
Also, I'd just like to add that Dave actually, they grow a lot of the plants from seedlings themselves. They're not trees from a nursery, so to speak, are they? You start with the little bit, don't you, someone?
Yes, so we it's like a 3-stage process in which we raise and from the seedlings to planting on the red zone. So we start out in like small seedling trays, and then once they've grown a bit, we then transfer them into 50 by 50 trays. So the size of the cups are around this length. It's probably a bit difficult to see. And then after they've grown a bit more, we plant them into actual pots, and then those are all ready to go and then plant out at the Christchurch red zone. Yes,
and I've been lucky enough to go down and help you fold up all. They reuse all the plastic pot, well, as many as you can if they don't get damaged. And I dare say some of them, Dave, have gone around a number of times. 4 times. Well, there you go. So it's really good. It's a win-win all over the place. Kelly.
Thanks, Phil. First, congratulations, guys. I think it's absolutely magnificent what you're doing. How does it make you feel to take eco action? Anyone can answer.
It's really rewarding, like seeing the impact you're actually making in the community and like going back to places you've planted out and seeing the growth. It's really exciting.
Anyone else?
I think it's also really cool to be able to work with other schools and see like the impact we can make coming together to work towards something.
Excellent. Thank you.
Alex.
Good day, everyone. Are there other schools that you guys are looking to onboard with this program?
I think I better answer that. David Newton. We've got a waiting list of 3 or 4 schools. We are full, and with regard to, we'd love to have more schools, but in order to, again, over deliver and under promise, we don't want to disappoint anybody. I've had several failures of seeds and seedlings. We lost. It's flight farming. You can't absolutely guarantee unless you over deliver with the seedlings, and so I don't want to have a number of disappointed schools. I've seen too many programs fall over because they got too big too quick. So we're not going to do that. But certainly the 4 to 5 year plan, once we cement where we are, we will definitely involve other schools.
Pauline.
Oh, thank you. Look, I just wanted to say, you've come in here to say thank you to us, but it's us thanking you. You're doing this incredible work. I'm really blown out with it, and your enthusiasm for it's just fantastic, and what you're doing for the city. Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to coming down another not wet Sunday and helping you again.
So all we can guarantee is the plants will be there. We can't guarantee the weather, but we don't plant in the rain. Wet underfoot, but not from above.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very kind.
Thank you. Righto. The next forum is from Susan, Jackson and Bob. Is Bob here? I'm not quite sure. For the Hapai Foundation. Oh, g'day, Bob. How you doing?
Good morning, I'm Susan Jackman. Unfortunately, Bob couldn't make it. He had
sorry, I couldn't see that far.
Yeah, no, he had a delayed flight this morning and didn't get in until 2 a.m. So instead, we've got Mike Burke and Bill McCallany, who are 2 of our trustees. I'm the executive manager.
Good to see you back, Mike. Pleased to be here.
Can I please borrow that paper?
Oh, sorry, Susan.
Thank you. Thanks for having us along. I hope that, yes, you've got the infographic in front that I sent along, so I'm going to talk to that and add a little bit more information. So just on 2 years ago, following the City Council's decision to sunset the Kiwi Able Leisure Card scheme, the Hapai Access Card was born, and I'd like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the very generous support both financially from the City Council and also from Gary Watson and Rachel Mullins and their team. It's absolutely invaluable, then we wouldn't be anywhere near where we are if it weren't for them. So thank you. So I just want to give you an update as to what we've achieved in the last 2 years. We're approaching 2,000 cardholders, which is 2,000 people with a disability receiving better access in the community. We've formed partnerships with 26 NGOs to work with their clients to achieve better access. We've onboarded 102 businesses, which means we've worked with them to reduce their barriers to access for disabled persons. And we have over 150 businesses in the process of being onboarded. Tomorrow is a new achievement for us. At 4 p.m. on Plains FM, we're starting our new radio show called Hapai Days. Where we're starting off on our first show, interviewing our brand new patron, Sir David Carter. We've expanded out of Christchurch now. We have onboarded businesses in Queenstown, Nelson, the Selwyn District, Hamilton, as well as Auckland. In the 2 years we've been operating, we've worked with 32 volunteers, of which 9 have moved into paid employment. We have a diverse workplace, and we've had people working with us from 9 different countries. We currently have 17 staff working with us, 13 of whom are volunteers and 7 have a disability. Our plans for the future are to develop partnerships to engage better with the Māori and Pacifica communities in Christchurch and Canterbury, continue with our national rollout, particularly into Greater Canterbury, and work to make the card a recognised photo ID, which is an objective from the government's disability strategy. And our vision for the future is for Christchurch to become New Zealand's most accessible city. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Aaron, please.
Just, it's not a, well, it is a question because I'll get you to explain it to people. When they look at the Hapai card, which is up in that top corner, it comes up on their screen when they open it. It has all the symbols along the bottom. Do you want to explain the value of having those symbols on the card and why they're there?
Sure, Aaron. So the way our card operates is by the symbols that Aaron's pointed out. There's 9 symbols. They've been developed with a lot of research and basis. They came from the UK, from a scheme called the Access Card in the UK, which has over 50,000 card, or actually approaching 100,000 cardholders and over 2,000 businesses onboarded. They operate, it's quite simply a way of communicating your access needs to another party, i.e. a business. So I'll quickly go along the bottom from left to right. The 3 people standing is that person either has a physical difficulty or a cognitive difficulty with the concept of queuing or standing. The next symbol is level access for wheelchairs and or mobility aids. The +1 symbol is where the true value of our card comes into play. That means that person needs an essential companion or caregiver with them to engage in the community, and wherever a business we engage with has an admission price or a ticket charge, our deal breaker is that business must provide the companion ticket for free. Next along is difficulty walking distances. WC is a urgent access to toileting or incontinence issue. Next is an assistance dog. The next one along is difficulty hearing or comprehending audible information. The 6 dots is difficulty seeing or comprehending visual information. And both of those don't just encompass being deaf or blind, low vision. It could be often people who suffer from things like MS will sometimes have what they call brain fog, where the words or the letters on a page just don't make sense. And then the last one is hidden disability, which is for things that aren't actually covered by any of the other icons, or for things that aren't blatantly obvious to a third party. And this is it covers things like photo sensitivity to light. It covers things like being mute. And when a card holder will have a combination of those icons, they may not have all of them. And when they go to a business, they present that card to the staff, and it's a way of discreetly communicating their access needs. So they don't need to say in a busy cafe, "Where's your toilet?" because I have incontinence problems. It's a discreet way of maintaining their dignity and receiving the reasonable accommodations that they need.
Absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much for coming and explaining. And
time's up.
Time up. Sorry, we've got a lot on our plate. Right. How quick is it? I thought it was.
2,000 card holders, and just with those icons, you must have like a really good aggregated data set of like where the highest levels of need are that actually probably would provide the city or anybody with a lot of interesting information as to, how
Fantastic
to
question. We're currently working with the council to put a QR code or a barcode reader. We're just waiting for, particularly in the swimming pools, for the technology. I understand it's being upgraded. We're waiting for the upgrade of the technology, and we are going to put a QR or barcode, whichever is appropriate, on there so that people can get scanned in, and that will capture the icons and needs, and we'll have a great data set moving forward.
Very good.
That will be able to be really good for decision making in future.
Wonderful. Great to hear. Thank you.
Thanks, Simon. That was
thanks, Mr.
a
Chair.
great question. Thank you very much for coming in, and keep up the good work.
Thank
Nice
you.
to see you, Mike.
Okay, so the next one we've got is Lincoln Voice, of coming to talk to us for 5 minutes. And Denise, is it?
Yes.
Yeah,
hi.
thank you. Fire away.
Okay. I wish I'd been here with the previous two groups, to be honest. But anyway.
Don't be scared.
No, that's okay. Well, my name's Denise. Thank you for giving me the time to speak today. Normally, I work at Rolleston College in learning support with high needs students, which is why I'd rather be with the previous group. I'm not a planner. I'm not a politician. I'm just someone who desperately wants to see some common sense. We understand that you have funds that you can apply, that we could apply for, but that under normal circumstances, we do not meet the criteria. We do, however, feel that our situation is exceptional, which is why we want to present to you today. So I'm representing Lincoln Voice Incorporated. They're a community group based in Lincoln, Selwyn. We got together originally to speak up for our community against a private plan change 69, which is due to turn 190 hectares of highly productive land, classes 1 to 3, so the best soil that New Zealand has, into, originally it was going to be 1,700 homes, but that could now be up to 5,000 homes. This is because, unlike yourselves who stood up for your residents, Selwyn District Council have introduced the medium density residential zoning across the whole of Lincoln, Prebbleton and Rolleston, with virtually no exceptions, and including all private plan change land, even that which is under appeal at the Environment Court, such as PC 69. So what we are wanting to ask you is, how does PC 69 fit with the vision and principles of the Greater Christchurch Partnership and its planning for efficient, coordinated, responsible growth and infrastructure investment? You will be aware that even the Greater Christchurch Partnership's own housing assessment estimates that in the short term, you are projected to have a capacity of 95,000 homes. In the medium term, this will be 83,000, and in the long term, you will still have an excess of 60,000 homes. How does PC 69 fit in with the billions of dollars of public money that both the government and the Christchurch City have invested in the rebuild of Christchurch over the last decade and have planned for the decade ahead? Urban sprawl on the furthest edge of Lincoln will require significant public investment and take important public infrastructure money away from other areas of high need, such as Christchurch City. How does PC 69 fit in with the billions of dollars? How does PC 69 fit in with preserving irreplaceable, highly productive land and protecting a world-renowned food bowl right on your doorstep? Lincoln is home to the oldest agricultural university and the largest centre of land and environmental research in the Southern Hemisphere. We just can't understand why the Greater Christchurch Partnership and Environment Canterbury have so easily let all of this go. Christchurch City is becoming a donut city. Do you really want everyone living out around the edges? Do we in Selwyn want to be living in dormitory suburbs where no one is home during the day? Rolleston has already gone this way and has ever-increasing issues with youth crime rates. Yourselves and Environment Canterbury submitted very strongly against PC 69 at the time. Sadly, though, neither yourselves or Environment Canterbury appealed the decision or joined our appeal as a Section 274 party, which we had really hoped that you would, considering that this massive subdivision flies in the face of everything that the Greater Christchurch Partnership was set out to achieve. We were fortunate enough to have the Environmental Defence Society join us as a 274 party, as they feel the issue is of national significance and saving highly productive land will be crucial for New Zealand going forwards, considering how much has already been lost to poor planning. Is it right, though, that a small community group with, to be honest, very little in the way of funding is left to see this appeal through without the support of those people who were put in place to do just that, i.e. protect the natural environment, uphold the integrity of the Greater Christchurch Partnership, and protect the urban and rural well-being of their communities? Selwyn District Council have failed us monumentally by telling us as ratepayers to take them to the Environment Court. They are also monumentally failing Christchurch City by actively promoting all the urban sprawl that they possibly can. Obviously, that is a bold statement for us to make, but if you look at the number of private plan changes that Selwyn have rushed through recently, then you will see why we have to say this. So basically, in summary, we are asking if there is any way, in any shape or form, that you can help us to start put this right and stand up for the words and intent of the Greater Christchurch Partnership, and mostly importantly, stand against the ongoing rapid loss of land on your city's boundaries that could feed your communities now and for generations to come, particularly in the face of rising climate change issues. Thank you for taking the time to listen to us today.
Thank you for going to the effort of coming and doing a fantastic presentation. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
No, I have got
Do you have
lots
some
of questions.
questions?
Can I ask you a question? Not if we run out of time here. I've got a process. Can we get some staff advice to Lincoln Voice on the actual application processes and funds that might be available for a formal application process for funding, which is what ARWA did a few years back for their successful grant and successful case to the High Court?
I'm sure we can offer some advice. We'll work with John.
Yeah, so whether that's DRF or Capital Endowment
Yeah,
Fund
so,
or whatever
so
we
it
use
will
for
be.
ARWA.
I will seek staff advice and see what the position is.
And can we get some information back from GCP as well about what's going on?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The presentation clearly needs to go to GCP.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank
Good
you.
on. Okay, the next one is Harrison Harrison, who is presenting regarding the upcoming Innes by-election. Welcome, Harrison.
Morning, everyone. So I've sent two things in just to show you quickly as we go through. So you'll have a map in front of you there. So I'll be full disclosure, I was a candidate in the last election going forward, and I probably will be considering that they're going to open tomorrow, is it? I think it does. So, but there was one thing that concerned me during the previous election cycle with regards to the geographical nature of the ward, and that was that there were no special voting or poll drop places within the physical boundaries of the ward for the previous triennial election. Given that the by-election will be self-contained, the fact that that currently doesn't seem to have changed is something that concerns me. So on your map, you've got two red dots, which are the Papanui and Shirley service centres. So to that, I've added a number of orange dots, which represent feasible public access places within the ward. So, for example, Kokinga, the St Albans Community Centre on Colombo Street, the McFarlane Park Community Centre, most of the schools within the area, as well as supermarkets. So, as you can see, the only two places currently planned for the ward, as far as I'm aware, that have been publicly made available are the red dots, and yet within the ward, all of those orange dots potentially represent a place where a polling paper could be dropped, where there is access to staff, not necessarily council staff, but somebody who can assist with that in making sure that ballot papers are dropped, as well as, or being a high frequency place for people visiting, so schools, supermarkets, etc. outside of Christchurch this year, there was a really significant point that was made in Auckland that a lot of the supermarkets in the central city had polling places, or rather, I say polling places, I mean drop boxes. And those drop boxes were quite successful in the number of ballot papers taken in. It also would move a lot of the drop boxes to publicly recognisable places within the ward that have a high degree of visibility and can have associated advertising, or rather, things around that. So that's something I just would be suggesting going forward. But yeah, the green ones represent ones that would also be suitable but aren't in the ward. So like Stanmore New World, which is a few blocks out but is a high place. But so that's the first thing. And then I've just also got, there's a spreadsheet as well that I have, which is just very rough data that I've taken from the past 3 triennial election reports and broken down, which shows that since 2016, there's been a relatively, I would say, not great trend towards, with regards to voter behaviour and the way that the pamphlets are laid out. So we're not talking about the voting papers themselves, the actual ballot papers, but rather the information booklets that come alongside them. That there's becoming a trend that the further back in the booklet you are, the less likely you are to be elected, regardless of your suitability as a candidate. So the 2 biases that come into play here are ticket bias and incumbency bias, where a candidate is an incumbent or they have a ticket, seem to counteract that. But when a candidate doesn't have that bias, for example, in this year, no candidate was elected from further back in the booklet than the 5th position unless they had a bias in their favour, which was incumbency and or a ticket. And of that, there were only 5 as far as I'm aware. And going back to 2019, there were 7, and none were elected from further back than 4th on the booklet without those biases. So, but that's just some very rough data I've broken down. It could probably be broken down further and done in a more statistical nature, but from a first look perception, it's just something I'd like to raise with the council about that. So, yeah.
Thank you, Harrison. Pauline, you had something?
It's really interesting.
Just one.
Just looking at the little dots to the left of Cranford there.
Yep.
Is one of them the BP?
One of them is the super value BP area.
Yeah.
And then the one below it is Kohinga. And then below that you have the marae on Springfield Road.
Right. So the only other thing that would have been interesting to see on there is the location of post boxes.
Yeah,
are actually very few.
I actually did note that after I sent it, I thought I should have put that on the map.
But they're very few.
For reference, I don't actually even know where they are. I think there's one in that area just outside. Is there one just outside the BP still?
No, there's one in the supermarket.
Okay.
And then there's one maybe on Warrington Street, and then the Palms. There's very few,
Yeah.
and so I think that's really interesting. Thank you.
That's right. Yep.
Thank you, Harrison. Thank you for the points you've raised today. It's very enlightening. Thank you very much. Okay, the last one is Clive James, who is here, is presenting regarding the chlorination in the Birdlings Flat area. Welcome.
Good morning to you all. I'd like to thank the Council for this opportunity to speak here today. I'm Clive James, and this is Stephen Duda. We're residents of the Birdlings Flat and the heads of the Birdlings Flat Action Group. My previous position as the Three Waters team leader for the Clutha District Council gives me the insight required to speak to this matter. Reading a media post by Tyrone Fields on Facebook on the 18th of November, which is last Friday, we found out that Council intended to chlorinate our water supply with immediate effect. Feedback from locals flooded in on social media. It just went mental. This motivated me to have my say on the matter, as I don't believe this is the right action to take in our unique situation. The last time this action was suggested by the Council back in 2009, and following consultation and much debate with the residents, UV disinfection was chosen to be the preferred water treatment agreed by both parties. Regarding today's case, no notice has been provided by council or provision for research or submissions to be made by the residents. And it's just not right. It's just... We, the Action Group, and as witnessed by our petition, demand the council suspend further action due to our unique situation and water quality as by your test results indicate. We believe we reach all the criteria set out by Te Mata ROY for residual disinfection exemption. After consultation with a Waimea Area District Council representative, I was provided with the attached document, the council to work with the Te Mata ROY on chlorine exemption as attached. Several points in this document help me reach the conclusion that there are many options available before we take such a drastic measure as chlorinating our pristine water full time. Therefore, we ask your team immediately works with Te Mata ROY and obtains an exemption as soon as possible from having to full-time chlorinate our water, as the Waimea Area District Council has already done. You may not know about how Birdlings Flat is unique. We're unique for these reasons. Our population is way less than 500. We already have a safe system. Our bore depth is 188 metres and travels through 5 different aquifers. We have existing UV disinfection and sand filters. We have newly installed backflow prevention at each residence. Due to our isolation, most residents grow their own food in vegetable gardens and must water particularly through the summer months. Birdlings Flat has unique wildlife, and we have lizards and skunks not found anywhere aside from the Kaikoraiti spit. These live and feed off our veggie patches and the insects that live around our homes. We also have plant life and other insects found nowhere in New Zealand. The dangers of regular introduction of chlorine into our water supply has long-lasting risks and effect to both human health and to our unique wildlife via the introduction of chlorinated water from gardens, etc., as many case studies have indicated. I would now like to just respond to Helen Beaumont's evocative letter that we received yesterday threatening to commence chlorinization tomorrow, Thursday, on the 24th of November. On the morning of 22nd, I personally visited the bore site, as can be seen on the council's security cameras. I see no evidence of any slumping of the bore head, previous or otherwise. So we will require evidence that this is the case. Anyway, untreated water is pumped from the well to the storage tank at the treatment plant and then passes through a media filter before final UV treatment and distribution to properties. So it is still not receiving disinfection treatment. It is receiving disinfection treatment prior to usage. So therefore, we do not have any untreated water supply being delivered directly from the bore. We believe the installation of a chlorine system for emergency use only, as dictated by the test results and unfavourable E. coli readings, would be an acceptable solution to the community, but must only be used due to an emergency and whilst any physical work on the bore is taking place next year. Our current UV system must not be removed, as we feel that this is a totally acceptable treatment once full exemption is received. We look forward to a positive resolution. As discussed with Tyrone and Tim, the community says no, and no means no. Any questions?
No, unfortunately, because it's your area.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be quick. So thanks, Clive and Steve. So what does this issue mean to you on a personal level?
Thank you, Tyrone, and I will be quick. On top of all this, my wife has terminal lung cancer and has extreme skin conditions. And so having chlorine in water is it'll just flare up something wicked. And the more and more people I talk to within the community is in the same boat, that they've all got various skin conditions, eczema, you know, we've got kids along the road with eczema that will flare up with chlorine additive. So, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, mate. Thank you very much.
We need to receive the petition
Yeah,
there.
yeah. We need to receive your
Thank you for
petition.
your time.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming in.
Have a discussion about what we do, or based on what we've heard, or
So my advice to you would be, I know we have briefing this afternoon. I suggest that Helen and Jane come and talk to you about the position, exactly what the score is from the officer perspective, and walk you through the issues in light of what you've heard in the presentation this morning.
Mm-hmm. So we'll make time this afternoon.
We'll make time this afternoon.
So, now we move on to deputations. There are none. We move on to petitions. We've got one, but there are no others. And I'd like to confirm the council minutes from the 22nd of October and the 2nd of November. Do I have someone? Thank you, Pauline, and thank you, Tyler. Okay, so now we are going to stop at 11. We're nowhere near that. That's cool for a cup of tea. And it's, yes, yes, it was. All those in favour? Thank you. Against? No, thank you. Right, so now we're up to item number 7. The Sumner Lifeboat Institution, transfer of buildings and granting of ground lease. Right.
We've got Sarah moving and take your pick.
Victoria, okay.
Seconding.
So we've got a mover and seconder. Is there any questions, any debate? All those in favour? Those against? Thank you. Carried. It's a fantastic amount of work, yeah. Well done. Well done.
Thank
Well
you,
done.
Councillor Johansson.
Okay.
Can all council meetings be like this?
Yeah. Right, we're now up to item number 8, which is the report of the electoral officer on the elections. And Joe is, no, Helen's coming to see us.
Thank you, Mayor. Apologies, the electoral officer is unwell, so I'll do my best
Okay.
to answer any questions.
So just what I'd like to say, that we're just receiving this
That's correct.
information, and questions that Councillor Johansson has raised yesterday afternoon have been noted for the report in 2023.
That's correct. Report regarding the voting and participation in these elections will be sent in 2023.
Thank you very much. Right, do we, well, yep, Yanni's got a question?
I mean, we've just had a deputation this morning, or a public participation. There's serious issues that people have raised about access to being able to vote. Just wanted to know, in terms of the report back in 2023, if any work is going to be done between now and then to ascertain community views on what could be done to improve voter participation and turnout.
That's not a matter I can answer right now.
Right. So is anyone able to, like, I mean, it's pretty fundamental in my view. We've had a public participation this morning. We've got a by-election coming up. I guess the concern is the longer we leave it, the less relevant the information is because of the delay.
What I can say is that there is an inquiry undertaken after every local government election, which hasn't yet been completed, that provides national information, and that will be available to you by the time your report comes back.
So I understand that, because we've made submissions to that just about every term that I've been elected to council, and almost nothing has changed and nothing has improved. But what we can do locally around things like voting locations, where people can do specials, etc., based on what we've just heard this morning, is there any, like, what would be the process to get that work underway to engage the community over what we might be able to do for that 2023 report? Is that something I should just wait until December? But I'm just mindful, if we wait until December to do anything on it, then we've got the whole Christmas holidays and we don't have much time.
Well, there is a report coming to us in very early next year. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So, okay.
Okay, well, I'll move an amendment or an additional resolution then.
Hang on, I've got Tim's question first.
So we've got our report coming after in the new year, and we've got a national overview of the election system. Yes. So that's coming in the new year as well?
I don't have a date for that, I'm afraid, Councillor.
Okay, but the time frame for that's usually a few months after the election. Yeah. But I think that we should get the information before we go forward on anything else. It seems ridiculous to start a third process when we've already got a report coming to us and there's a national report with an overview. So I'm quite happy to second. Someone else moved it, so I'm quite happy to second.
No, so I've got Pauline to move it and Sam said he's going to second it. So, is there any debate? Thank you, Yanni.
So I just wanted to move an additional resolution, and it's not to put additional work on staff. It's simply what I think we would do anyway as part of this report, and that is that council asks staff to seek community views on what can be done to improve participation and voter turnout as part of the returning officer report back in 2023. So it's just making it explicit that we will talk to our community as part of developing that report, which I would hope that we would do anyway, but I think it would be good just to record it. The reason for putting that is that, you know, it seems to me that, and I know this council over the last few terms hasn't really wanted to get an in-depth understanding of what could be done to improve it, but it's very clear that there's huge obstacles that have been put in place. Just the removal of post boxes, the ability for people to special vote does have an impact. I represent an area that has one of the lowest voter turnouts in terms of the wards in the city, and it's completely disheartening that this council is not doing more to understand what it can do to improve how people can participate both in the elections and in terms of voter turnout. But there are a number of barriers that have been put in place because of things that have happened. The Justice and Electoral Select Committee process will take up to 2 years. We've been through that process on numerous occasions. It is not a solution to addressing the local things. Other councils have done a lot more than what we've done as an organisation, and it would be good to hear from our community about what things that they think we can do to improve, and we've just heard an example of that this morning. So I don't think this resolution takes away from the report. I think it simply adds to it and just gives an understanding that we do expect some engagement around what the solutions may be.
So Yanni's got a amendment that he's obviously happy to move. Is there a seconder for that?
I've got a question on
Before we go any further, I just want to know.
what's the financial implication of that in our staff? Do we have the capacity to do that? It's probably for the chief executive to answer that one, I'd say.
I can't answer the question in terms of the financial implications because I've just heard the issue. And in relation to, I'm assuming Councillor Johansson is wanting that engagement to happen before the report comes back to Council. Is that correct?
What we would do, we would judge something up around our significance policy, and then we would decide whether we, you know, what sort of levels of views we would seek. I would have thought something as fundamental as voter participation and engagement, you would actually want to seek the views of people as part of that, developing that report. But I couldn't get an answer today on whether we were going to do that or not, which is why I'd rather err on the side of having it recorded so that we do have an expectation on it.
It's just capacity really is what I'm questioning, that it may delay the report. We don't have the information.
Correct. If you remember, like last term, we set up a whole we had a whole report plan with a whole bunch of things we were going to do to engage with our communities. So I don't think this would be a costly thing, given that we've actually got a framework we can actually change.
Well, perhaps we could circulate that report that's already been done for interest.
So I'm just seeking advice of my officer, Lynn.
So I think it's important to put on the record that Christchurch's participation rate actually increased in this past election as it has in the previous election. So I'm not saying that it's where it needs to be, but I think we need to start with what the current situation is. In relation to seeking input from members of the community, that will require a level of additional staff, time and resource in order to do it in the right way with the right representation. So this is not necessarily a cost-free approach. What we would need to do is assess how much it would cost and how we could get the best possible information, given that there is a Christmas New Year period. So it's not just about resources, it's also about timing. My suggestion would be that we assess how much resource and cost it would incur before making a commitment to councillors to undertaking that action.
Thank you, Lynn. I'd just like, Tyler had a question first, sorry. Sorry.
We're practically interchangeable.
You got 15 years younger.
But you did have a question. You did have a question.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, I'm 16 years older than Tyler. I agree with the sentiment of what Yanni's asking for, but like I'm sort of a bit careful about jumping straight to solutions when, as Tim pointed out, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. So, yeah, so I guess, okay, so.
Are you debating or questioning?
Okay.
So, yeah, so I guess the question is like, can we put something up there that, I think we can, that doesn't bind us to a whole bunch of activity by staff. Yeah.
So could we?
That's pretty much
guys,
it.
are we in debate or are we asking questions? So I just want to
Filling questions.
Yeah, I appreciate I was arguing rather than asking a question.
So the question for Tim is the question for Phil. could we potentially amend that a wee bit just to say, council would like, if it is possible, to consult with the community, and that gives Lynn and the team the ability to actually maybe include it if they can in terms of the report. So it's kind of like you're saying, not jumping to the solution, but talking about the intent.
May I suggest that we include that in the report that comes back early in the new year, and if it includes further consultation, we will include that at that point. It may be that it's a two-stage process. Could I suggest that? Because this is a report about the results from the last election.
Correct. Okay, Sarah.
Yeah, along those lines, when the next report comes back, it would be really good if there was something that was a piece of work to happen that isn't just a seeking community views. It's a getting staff to investigate the barriers to participation and a plan to increase participation at the next election. That kind of bit more holistic, and that way it can capture national data that's already been collected and a range of other bits and pieces.
There is a lot of information already available on a global scale. This is a global as well as a national and a local issue.
Yeah, and there'll be some local stuff about, where the sites are and those kind of things for people to actually go to, as well as incorporating the broader information. But when the next report comes back, if that was one of the sort of recommended ways forward, to investigating the barriers to participation and things.
So I think that's a sensible question. I think it's something that absolutely should be in the report anyway.
Yeah.
And Helen has made a note of that.
It probably was going to be in the report anyway.
It was actually out of scope for this report anyway.
Correct.
Yeah.
But we do want to make sure that there are enough
So
in-person
we've heard
places for the by-election.
Yeah, so we've heard the request.
Mm-hmm. Correct. It is. So what's the next step here?
So is there a seconder for Councillor Johansson's?
Thank you, Erin.
As it's read, presumably.
Okay. So now, do we...
On first.
Okay.
To see the members' views.
Well, now it can be debated.
Yes. That's right. So we've got a mover and a we've got a mover and a second for Yanni's amendment. Have we got any debate? Thank you, Tim. And then Sarah.
Yeah, look, this is, for me, cart before the horse. There's been some really good suggestions to add to the report when it comes to us, but do keep in mind that we increased our voter turnout, which is a really, really good thing in the face of where it's been going the last couple of elections. So I will not be supporting this, and I'll be waiting for the report. And hopefully the information that the questions have added to what the content of the report, which I'm sure was already going to be there, will help us move forward.
Thank you, Tim. Sarah.
Thanks. I think Yanni's right in that if we really value democracy and voter participation, we really need to be looking at what those barriers are and trying to remove the barriers to participation. And while we did increase participation a little bit this time, that was, I think, led by the type of election that we were having with the mayoral campaign, that kind of stuff, which we haven't had recently. And there was a huge amount of media focus that we haven't had in the past as well. I don't think it's the right resolution for this report, but I do think that we need to be looking more closely at removing those barriers. What we tend to find is that participation is from some areas and not others, not just geographically, but when we get to communities of interest and stuff as well, and many don't participate. And I think that we need to be focused in that, not just geography. I think that we do need to look or give some sort of direction or some actions for the electoral officer for the by-election and making sure that there are enough sites. It was great to see Wellington have every supermarket with a chained up drop box for their ballot papers, all of those kind of things, making it easier at this point too. And it'd be nice to trial it maybe this time. Thanks.
Okay, Jake, and then
yeah, I agree with that sentiment as well. I think that I think everyone around this table is really keen to see voter participation lift, and particularly ballot boxes in supermarkets is a no-brainer. But this is simply us receiving information and confirming election results. So I don't think this is actually that appropriate. And I also feel that actually seeking community views, while we will of course do that, how you do that's going to be really important, because if we were just to put this up on the have your say, what we're going to get is the people that religiously vote in local body elections, the people for whom there is no barrier to participating. So I'm not sure that this resolution actually does the right thing.
Thank Jake. Tyler, and then Tyrone.
I agree with Jake quite strongly in regards to when we're talking about seeking community views, it's actually very biased, because the way that it's been happening in the past 3 years is exactly the same way that we're going to be seeking it. So what I'd recommend with elected members and with staff is, since elected members are saying we need to push the voter quota up, but we're not actually going to participate in the public meetings, that's something that I'm actually more keen to do, get into the community, obviously before election year, not to actually be a part of the community and go into those places that we know so well, because that's where we're really going to get the real voice. If we just go out like and have your say, for example, that's not going to be a really relevant case in regards to this report. So therefore I'd like to be a doer personally, go out into the community and actually talk to the people that we know, and we all are here, we know our communities, and get the real voice, face to face, kanohi ki te kanohi, something that's really valuable in my opinion.
Good, thank you. Tyrone.
Again, what I do, Yanni, I do support the sentiment. I mean, I would absolutely love to see increased voter participation, as we've all said. I'd love to see Banks Peninsula get above 61%, which would be fantastic. But I think this is the wrong resolution for what we're trying to do. It's jumping to conclusions or jumping to solutions very quickly, and it's kind of it's not kind of part of a broader coherent approach to the problem that we're trying to solve. But like, I absolutely applaud Yanni for raising it, and but I won't be supporting the resolution based on I think it's the wrong thing to ask.
Andre.
Yeah, I do feel there is a need to seek out some views very fresh after the election. A lot of people who speak to you can't actually remember who they voted for. So to ask them in a year's time or 2 years' time what the barriers were, they may not remember what happened when they got their voting papers. So I think there is a real need to do it very, very soon. Voter turnout increased ever so slightly, still very similar to the last time. As we picked up on, most councils had voter drop-off boxes in supermarkets, dairies, all sorts. We just simply didn't have that. I can't get my head around why that is. I'm sure there's reasons, but I'm not sure what they are at this stage in time. So I'll be supporting Yanni's resolution. I think we need to get some sort of community views involved as soon as possible. That doesn't mean we can't do a more thorough consultation like Tyler has mentioned down the track as well, which absolutely needs to happen. But we need to seek out some views while this is fresh in people's mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. And then
Celeste. Yeah, I sort of wasn't going to, but because I thought we were probably in agreement that I think the intent of what Yanni is saying is bang on, but actually the ability for it to be delivered isn't really practical. So I think people shouldn't get lost in this, is that we don't want to hear from the community. We absolutely do. But actually, if you look at the intent of the report, we're literally receiving election results, and there's work going to be done. So I would just hate for anyone out there to get the impression that we actually don't want to listen to the community on this. But the other point that I think has been probably missed in this a wee bit is actually the fact that we're sitting around a table debating our own election results. Fundamentally, this is something that the council shouldn't have responsibility for. We should look at how we can help participation, but it should be driven from a central sort of point of view. So I think we shouldn't get lost on how we, I'd be quite worried if we were going to determine what supermarkets we put voting ballot papers in or boxes in. Fundamentally, that should be driven out of a central place like general elections. So we shouldn't get lost on it that we all, I think, want higher turnout, but I would hate for anyone to get the impression that if this amendment fails today, we don't want to hear from the community.
Celeste.
Yeah, this is a tough one because I'm a little bit on the fence. I think the intention is right, and I think we could overcomplicate it by saying that it has to be quite a comprehensive survey when actually we could do quite a simple poll and actually ask. There can be simple things that we do to improve voter participation. I mean, we know that 4 out of 10 people are voting currently, and actually, while that might be a slight improvement, it's not good enough. General elections have 8 out of 10, so obviously we need to make, as a country, bigger changes. And I agree with Sam's comment. Councils shouldn't be managing these. However, we also need to do small changes now. We need to do whatever we can. So I will be supporting this resolution, and I trust that staff will come back and provide an appropriate response that can be delivered in a way that will be helpful for making some improvements. So, yeah, I'll be supporting this.
And Yanni, Pauline, and you're last, Yanni, because you're the... Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I wasn't going to speak to this either, I was going to vote against it for the reasons that have been clearly outlined, but until Celeste spoke, referring to other ways like a simple poll, I would definitely support something like that as a beginning step. But because that's not captured in the resolution, I'm going to abstain on this today.
Thank you. Aaron?
Yeah, I'm happy to support it. That's why I seconded it. But it just says seek community views. Yanni hasn't dictated how in-depth that is or isn't. It's just seek community views. And the debate has highlighted the reason why I've seconded this resolution is, what about the stuff we don't know? Why do 60% of people not vote? Why are we not just asking a simple question? If you didn't vote, tell us why. It's just simple. There will be ideas out there and solutions out there none of us at this table think of. That's why those people don't vote. And in the ward of Harewood, I'd worked with my fellow community board members. We had a goal of getting our voter turnout from 40% to 50%, and we missed out by 0.5%. We had a plan on getting people out to vote, and it worked. So it can work in other places. And probably our ward alone was what kept the council from not slipping into being one of the declining councils, because a nearly 20% increase in one ward would do that, as much as Tyrone's by far ahead in a completely different universe. But that's Banks Peninsula.
Thank you very much. And Yanni, please.
So, we're now nearly at the end of November. I've sent you around a previous report from the returning officer. This council used to actually get the report into the election in the same month as the election in October that gave an outline of voter turnout around things that the council did to encourage participation. And, you know, for several terms now, we've stopped having that practice where we suddenly just receive the figures, but we don't get any analysis of why people are voting or not voting and what's being done to encourage it. So I cannot see what the harm is. For people to say that we're doing something that we've done the same and we'll get the same outcome just is not true. It is not true. This council has gotten worse at understanding what's happening in our local body elections over the past several terms than it did in 2007 and 2010. The reality is that there is absolutely a wide range of ways in which we seek community views, and for people that may not be aware of the Local Government Act, the emphasis is really on ensuring that people have information in a timely manner that enables them to best contribute and to participate. So seeking community views is incredibly wide open to staff or the organisation using the best tools it sees as getting the views from the people that are most impacted. So I don't think it's this big risk that we're suddenly going to be asking staff to spend millions of dollars on doing something that's very formal. We have a wide range of mechanisms that we can use, and we've used some of those for things like the stadium and things like yellow lines on roads and a whole wide range of things that we can do to get views. That's not just about hearing from the same people, but is actually about connecting with people that we may not be hearing from. But I would encourage you to support this. This is a simple request based on the fact that over the last few terms, that this council, when it's received the voting report, has not had an in-depth analysis of what's being done, and leaving it until the new year and possibly, 6 months to a year away from when the elections happened, I think you just lose valuable information. The best time to understand and seek views from the community is closest to the event as possible. We've already heard today, again, some examples of things that people can raise, and we've got a by-election coming up. So look, please support this. If you want to increase voter turnout, to say that things have improved, it went up from 33% in my ward to 34%, 1%, 65% of people did not vote, of eligible voters. That is completely unacceptable, and we should not just continue to just think that that's okay and that we're doing a good job. We have to improve, and I'm not coming up with what the solutions are, but I'm absolutely saying we should talk to our community about things that we may be able to do that would help, and I can't see why anyone would vote against doing that.
Thank you. So I have a mover and a seconder for this amendment. I'd like to put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. All those against?
I think you're going to need a division.
I think we need a division. Or not. This is just for Yanni's bit.
So this is just for the amendment number 2. Councillor Keown. Yes. Councillor McLennan.
Abstain.
Councillor MacDonald.
No.
Councillor Henstock. No. Councillor Moore.
Yes.
Councillor Scandrett.
No.
Councillor Harrison Hunt.
Yes.
Councillor Coker. Yes. Councillor Fields.
No.
Councillor Peters.
Yes.
The Mayor.
No.
Councillor Templeton. Yes. Councillor Barber. Deputy Mayor Cotter.
Abstention.
Councillor Johansson.
Yes.
Councillor Donovan. Yes. And Councillor Goff.
No.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 against and 2 abstentions.
So it's carried. That's carried. So now we vote.
Just to receive.
So we now vote to receive. Yeah. So that was moved by Pauline and seconded by Sam. So all those in favour? Aye. Against? Thank you. Carried. Right. I want to have a break at 11, but depending on how this next one might be a bit slower, but the two after that I think are going to be real good. So we'll see how we go. Number 9, the Addington Brook Waterway Renewal Master Plan, please. And is it Grant? Is it?
That's right.
Thank you.
Just sorry, Mr. Mayor. Just if you think those other two are going to go through pretty easy, do you want to just get them out of the way and done?
Sorry, Yanni, I didn't hear.
I was just suggesting if you think number 10 and number 11 are going to go through relatively straightforward, do you want to just get them out of the way?
I don't know if staff are here. Do you want?
Staff are here, and if you do that and go into tea break, staff are going to have to wait until after that to be able to present their information. So can we keep the agenda as it is, please?
Yeah, cool.
Okay, go Grant.
Cool.
Right, thanks for seeing me. Hopefully this is a bit lighter than your previous discussion. My name is Grant Solar. I'm the team leader for Three Waters Asset Management, but I'm also here representing the land drainage asset management for Three Waters. So the project is Addington Brook. In a nutshell, it's a renewal of a 1.2 kilometre timber lining, which runs from Deans Avenue to Riccarton Avenue. Historically, there was timber lining along the toe of the drain. Unfortunately, that's pretty much now rotted away, and there's only some remnants remaining. Addington Brook is the privilege of being the most polluted waterway in Christchurch, given the historical upstream uses and contamination and the way that we've used waterways as a means of flushing a lot of our problems away. The current form is steeply incised, especially at the ends towards Deans Ave and Riccarton Ave. Suffering from slumping, especially in the recent floods we've had. July, we've had a lot of floods, a lot of slumping, especially around the tennis courts, a lot of sedimentation release and all that kind of stuff. Scouring and pretty much general neglect as well. So I started looking at this project probably about a year and a half ago, but mostly in earnest at the beginning of this year. So I came into it because there is as a precursor to a proposed treatment facility which is proposed for Addington Brook and Rickenham Main Drain, which is going to be located outside of the park, is to basically take care of the first flush and provide some water quality for both of those waterways. So the reason I started to look at this renewals is that there's no point in cleaning up the water if we then put it into Addington Brook, where we don't take care of it, and we end up with sediment discharges going through. We won't really know if it's actually been useful or not. So I first started writing the brief back in January. One of the first things I did was contact Rupert Boll, who's the manager of the Higley Park Oval. We had a pretty good chat about things. One of the first things he mentioned was that parks were about to go through the process of fencing off Addington Brook due to health and safety concerns. There have been a number of fatalities in the waterways in South Higley Park, so parks were wanting to get on there and do something with it. They have actually already fenced off Rickenham Main Drain, but they hadn't quite got around to Addington Brook. So based on what I discussed with Rupert, he took it to his head department, and we got agreement from parks that rather than fencing it off, we would actually expedite our works and try and get it through as quickly as we could. So the proposal that I said, or that I put through to Rupert, was that even though we wanted to do a naturalisation, what we weren't wanting to do was clear fell a 8 to 10 metre corridor either side of the waterway and just go through and just do a renewal. What we're actually doing is being more sensitive to the plants and the trees and everything that's in there, and we'll try and achieve good, safe banks where we can, but also work around as many existing trees as we can as well. So there's compromises on both sides. I've also engaged quite a bit with Toby Chapman, city arborist. He's also been involved right from the start of the process. So once we've got agreement that the fence can be delayed, we engaged WSP to prepare a master plan, which is what has been sent out to you guys. So if I can scroll through master plan. Okay, so I'll just quickly run through the guts of the master plan itself. Yep. Okay, so hopefully everyone's had a chance to have a look at it. There's quite a bit of background information in the actual master plan itself. WSP, I feel, have done a pretty stellar job with preparing this. And the feedback I've had on it so far pretty much backs it up. So it's just a bit of a context with where Addington Brook runs, just in the general kind of catchment. It's one of the feeders, tributaries into the Avon, which runs then through North Higley Park. Just some historical information from old survey plans. What it does show is that most of the alignment of Addington Brook is still current where it used to be, right from when we first started collecting information, which is quite a feat. A lot of our drains have been modified quite heavily over time. The main, difference, as you can see here, is where it's been realigned to move around the netball courts in that lower right-hand photograph. So that's probably been the main change. So one thing that we were looking to do as we were working through the process was actually do a bit of a stock take on what existing documentation and plans and all that stuff had already been prepared. So some of the key documents that we delved into was there was a plan put out by the Christchurch West Mountain Zone Committee some years ago, just on the state of Addington Brook. Some general works with MKT and Aitahu. But the key documents that we really needed to align with was the Higley Park master plan and the management plan. Those we felt were pretty much the key documents we needed to make sure we aligned with. So within the management plan itself, there's a whole lot of key objectives for various projects that were created and put forward for things that could be done within Higley Park. And it just so happened that Addington Brook slotted in quite nicely with some of them. So the general feel for some of the works that should be looked at within this part of Addington Brook was basically to take away some of the inciseness. Encourage native plantings was another one. So through the corridor, and basically just showed a bit of love, I suppose. So one of the first steps we took, we engaged an arborist. He does a lot of work for council, who did a stock take of trees and tree health within a 20-metre corridor either side of the waterway. That then gave us the ability to give each tree a bit of a stock take on health, both condition as well as structural health. That then allowed us to give a score to each of the trees that were in there. So this on the slide here, you can see this is some of the work that was done on Addington Brook within North Hagley Park. So that's basically on the other side of Riccarton Ave, as it discharges, well, basically from the road through to the Avon. So this is a similar thing that's already in existence, which gave a bit of a palette for what we could try and achieve within South Hagley Park. There's a bit of feedback on some of the form there about the amount of rock and all that kind of stuff, but generally that's the kind of the work that's been done to Addington Brook already, just to give a bit of a feel for it. This just shows what it looks like when it's running quite full. You can see in some of the photographs there where the trees that we've got trees that not only are on the side of the waterway, we've actually got them grown within there as well, ones that have self-seeded. So this just shows some of the before and after photos. We've had a number of surveys done through here, and this just shows some of the slumping that's occurring. So these photos were taken before and after the July events, which just shows some of the damage that's just ongoing. The one against the netball courts is probably quite telling. So as I said before, one of the areas that's been realigned from the natural course is actually by the tennis courts, and as you can see, there is quite a bit of wear and tear occurring in this area, which is adding to the sediment loadings of the waterway. So for the master plan itself, along with the site survey, tree survey, we also had some contamination land looked at, contamination surveys done. Soil samples were taken from the banks as well as the beds of the stream. Going forward, we'd look at also doing some geotech as well as flows, loads, all that kind of stuff. So this is the kind of general work that WSP have come up with as far as solutions for what we're trying to achieve. So there's some lovely little graphics there which show what we're trying to do as far as flatten out some of the banks. There might be some better ones. As you can see through there, so this basically just demonstrates that what we're looking to do is work around existing trees that are within the corridor. Ideally, would go for grades of 1 and 4 on each of the side slopes, which would make it a safer entry and exit if someone did manage to fall into the waterway itself, versus what we've got now, which in some cases is almost 1 and 1. Would be looking to incorporate various in-stream features on the way through. So we've used Greg Burrell from In-Stream Consulting to provide advice on freshwater ecology on the way through. So not only are we looking at doing work on outside of the banks and planting all that kind of good stuff, we're also looking to incorporate logs, root masses, ponds, riffles, all that kind of stuff on the way through, just to give differences in both velocity and character of the waterway, to basically make it a bit more inviting. There isn't a lot of existing freshwater ecology in the waterway. Some of the surveys, some of the CREAS surveys that have been done through there, they have found some fish, but they're pretty sparse and usually just the harder species. Greg has made the comment that if we do carry out this works, he's quite confident that we will start to attract a more diverse range of freshwater ecology up into the watercourse through here. So on the slide here, we've actually got 2 options that we're proposing. The first one is to keep it along its current alignment, but the second option is to actually realign the waterway, as you can see in this slide here, more to the west and take it a bit further away from the netball courts. It's a bit of a subtle difference, but it will improve, or it'll decrease the chance of scouring on some of those type bends during flood events, and it'll also give us what the ecologists are calling a bit of an oxbow, with just leaving the original alignment there. We're looking to try and incorporate some kind of a wetland type environment through there, just to give it a bit more of diversity. So when we went through and did the tree survey. Just scroll through these pretty quick. There's just the two options. Right, so this is the outcome of the tree survey itself, based on the two alignments. Carrying out the work we need to try and do, just to get all those benefits. The effect is we will need to remove, if we go for option 2, which is the preferred option, 45 existing trees along that 1.2 kilometre alignment, and we're looking to transplant 20 as well. Taking into consideration the tree policy of the 2-to-1 replant for removal, we are actually anticipating on doing far more than the tree policy. Given the corridor width, we're looking to try and plant up between 5 and 8 metres on either side of the waterway. So it's going to be a substantial area that we're planting up in native plants. Again, which accords with the Higley Park master plan and management plan. So that's probably the guts of the... There we go. Here. So again, lots of lovely pictures for you to peruse at your leisure. Which basically just goes to show, again, it's the flattening of the banks, planting up native areas to get that regeneration going on. As far as comms and engagement goes, we've carried out key stakeholder engagement, various stages through the preparation of the master plan. I think we started at about the 50% preparation mark. We met with the Christchurch West Mountain Zone Committee members. They were fully supportive of the works we're trying to achieve. We only met with some representatives, but they took some slides back with them and then presented it to the full board. And again, everyone supported what we're doing. We've liaised with MKT, who took again the details and some of the slides back to the Renunga at Tuahiwi. The only comments we got back from them was that they wanted to have some input into some storyboards that we're looking to put in along the waterway. We presented the master plan to the Higley Park reference group, which includes the key interest groups such as the Hands Off Higley, and again they were also fully supportive of what we're trying to do here. Early engagements have been carried out with the Newsline article that was released on the 17th November, and depending on the outcome of this meeting, we'll look to do some follow-up release probably tomorrow. I think it's been put forward to.
Okay.
As far as construction of the works goes, we've got a budget of 6.3 million. That budget was the best kind of allowance we had at the time that the project was initiated. There is a large amount of budget in there for contaminated lands. I am hoping that based on the contaminated land survey, we may not need it all. And there's also a fair whack in there for tree removal as well. We are looking to divide the construction activities up into at least 2 separable portions to try and ease the pain, potentially, I suppose is one way to put it. We're looking to do the first portion between the netball courts and the Higley Oval, so that's basically through the area where there is no... The woodland feel isn't through there, it's a lot more open. So basically that will allow us to almost give a bit of a taste for what the rest of it's going to look like before we actually go through and do tree removals. So currently we're looking to do some construction works for the first separable portion in kind of March, April. We'll assume that that's going to be successful, and following that we'll then move into the rest of the works, tree removals, and then doing either side of that. We are very conscious, and again discussing it with key staff such as Toby Chapman, we're well aware that there will need to be quite a heavy focus on protecting the trees when the construction activities have been carried out. So we're looking to ensure that methodology, track record, and relevant experience are heavily weighted within the construction works. So I do understand that there's a bit of financial pressure coming on at the moment, and that every cent has been looked at quite closely. I just would like to say that I believe that this project I mean, it's going to lift the profile of what really is a fairly manky, neglected waterway within what's supposed to be one of the jewel park of Christchurch. We'll be continuing some of the themes that are already in existence in North Hagley Park down through South Hagley Park. The benefits, I mean, we're going to be improving freshwater habitat, freshwater ecology. We'll be bringing in more diverse native ranges of trees through there for hopeful improvement to native bird life. This project, it actually hits, for a renewals project, which is where I tend to work, this one actually hits all 6 values that council tries to put out there. Normally, if I get one or two, then it's...
I think you've said more than enough.
Okay.
Thank you. It is
So
not your
I think it's a
job
pretty
to
really good
extol
idea.
the project. It's just to give objective.
Are you a
advice.
salesman? Right, we'll do some questions. I'm sure we've got something about Pauline and then Mel.
Thanks, Grant. You mentioned the there's a couple of things this is dependent on. You can't install the first flush basin until this work's done because it's virtually pointless. And that's intended to go on the other side of the road, on the other side of Dean's Ave, is that correct?
That's right.
And what's the cost of that? Do you have an idea?
I'm not sure. I'm not involved in that project.
Okay, and is that just a basin?
No, they're proposing more of a like a bioscape treatment device. So it's like a big rain garden. So it'll be a pit of some sort with filter media, drainage media in the bottom.
Is it going to be a bit like the Bells Creek one, or?
No, you mean the storm filter?
Yeah.
No.
Not as big as that.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty big from what I've seen, but it's going to be planted up. So from the top surface, it'll look like a rain garden with mulch and plants and stuff growing through it.
And you don't know when that's timed for?
No, it's been a bit slower in occurring.
Yeah.
But I think within the next couple of years is what they're looking for.
Okay, and then the other question is, how long? You talked about the fencing being required on the stream because it's no longer safe.
Yep.
So, but you can hold off that fencing until this work's done and hold off the cost of that?
That was what we were putting forward, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But
So the idea was that rather than spend a couple $100,000 on fencing, we accelerate these works and that takes the place of the fencing itself.
yeah. So, to do this work is not actually going to resolve a lot of the contamination in the brook, is it? Because it's
No, it
coming
won't.
from all those businesses in Riccarton
That's correct.
that are running off. But it will naturalise it, make it safer, make it better amenity and all those ecological values. Will it actually bring back the ecology if it's still polluted?
There'll be less likelihood, I'm assuming. We do need to get the water quality tidied up, and that is, again, it's a project that's been put forward. So this on its own, no, I don't think it will.
No. And so the other thing is that, are we bringing this forward in the LTP now?
Yeah, I think the main spend is probably 2 years away, 1 year away. So yeah, some of the difficulty that we have with renewals projects is that we can't always spend the money when we need to for budgetary constraints for when we try and set these projects up.
Yeah.
So for me personally, a lot of my projects do drip feed for the first couple of years in anticipation that we bring funds back and actually build it in a sensible time frame.
And so how long will it take to do it? I mean, you talked about starting in March with the first phase, second phase after that. Would it be 1 year's work or?
Yes, so I want to get the first lot done this kind of construction season, and the next lot would follow on. We're basically just following straight on with detailed design, and then we'll just crack into it. So it'll be detailed design, will cover the whole waterway. Discussing it with procurement, we're even considering whether we look at ensuring that there's enough detail within the first separable portion so that we can get unit rates, and if possible, we may even just roll it out as a variation.
And so how much have we spent already?
Probably about $100,000.
Okay. So this is on top of that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
There's a pathway along the side of this. Is that part of the proposed budget?
It was put in there for graphical purposes of what could be achieved. So the pathways themselves are something that would need to be discussed with Parks colleagues. If they were able to have suitable funding, perhaps we look at it together.
So the answer is no, it's not part of the cost.
It could be, and there would be enough money on there. It's only a gridded path, so it's not a big deal.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so my next question about that path was, why is it along the south side of the brook rather than along the north? Because that requires putting that bridge in. Can you answer that?
Yeah, a lot of the paths that are shown there, they mimic existing sight lines where people are currently walking. So as you're saying on that southern side, we think it's probably people that park on Deans Ave and then walk to the netball courts along that side of the stream. So they do mimic just where people are currently informally walking anyway.
So I guess what I'm trying to get at is there, because I'm supportive of this because there's lots of great features to this, but is there a way to, if that budget can include the pathway and it's not necessarily required now, it could be done later, or could it be done in a way that doesn't require putting in a pedestrian bridge? How can we make it cheaper?
Make the entire project cheaper, you mean?
Well, if this pathway can be done within that budget some way,
Yep.
then that means that budget can be trimmed, doesn't it?
It could, yep. But again, it depends if parks, because that would then be handed over to them as an asset, so they would need to make sure that they're on board. There's other considerations which this doesn't show, such as safety, lighting, all that kind of stuff, so it is a lot more complicated.
Right, and then the other question I had is, and I couldn't see it, but I might have missed it. What was the cost of option 1?
We haven't put together any specific values on either of the options.
Well, there is a budget value in 7.1. So I feel like I haven't got enough information at the moment. Well, to just make any decision whatsoever, because we haven't got all the pricing.
This is only a master plan. It could easily come back once we do have it.
So are we making a decision on the budget today then?
The budget's already gone through the LTP process. It's already a figure that's been approved, I suppose.
Right.
It's a line item that's currently in the LTP.
Right, and that's to cover option 2.
That'll cover off either options.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask about finances. What would you anticipate to be the financial implications if we held off on this? And I'm anticipating it would be a bit more expensive in the future, but do you have any idea on in that regard?
The difficulty may be if we hold off the risk to not doing something and having those steep banks may not be enough for, or maybe too much for parks, and they may want to fence it off, in which case you're going to lose a couple $100,000 just in fencing it, in which case then we have to make a decision. Well, if we do then go through and do these works, do we leave the fence in there? Are they going to be a detraction, or do we just rip it out and throw it away?
And in terms of the safety issues, you highlighted the fatalities in your brief. I'm just wanting to check around where are the highest areas of danger, particularly for the public, in this brook, and is it involved in, I guess, in option 2? Is that has that been highlighted in option 2 in regards to could we prioritise that part first in terms of the more dangerous parts over the other sites?
I'm not 100% sure on where the fatalities occurred, but if someone else knows, please chime in. But I believe there's been one on Addington Brook.
I can answer that if you
Oh, thank you.
There were 2 fatalities within Hagley Park and South Hagley Park, one in the Riccarton Stream and one in Addington Brook. The Addington Brook one was between the netball courts and Glenham Road, where it's quite heavily treed. Unfortunately, a person who was part of a homeless community over in the old showgrounds area biked off. It's quite late at night, very dark. Biked off to the left, and if you know that area or the brook, it's almost a vertical drop. Yeah. So there are coronial inquiries going on. They're taking a very long time. We haven't had the results of those yet. We haven't been instructed or directed to fence the streams as such, but with the advent of night cricket at Hagley Oval, when the lights were commissioned, we took it upon ourselves to try to prevent patrons who might have had a little bit too much to drink or whatever, to step in and put some sort of farm style, woodland style fencing in place. So we've completed Riccarton Stream, because that's predominantly where the people come in and out to the venue. And then, as Grant has already mentioned, we were going to progress on to Addington Brook and focus on that area. Everywhere else, it's either reasonably well protected, closer to Riccarton Ave, or it's wide open. So visibility is a bit better.
Last question. In regards to, we've covered, I guess, the economic side and the social side. In terms of the environmental aspect, I see a lot of benefits. In regards to council's responsibilities in regards to climate action and ecology, you said that ticks all of the boxes, correct?
Yep.
Great. So when we're thinking about the water quality, you did say that it wouldn't improve if we move the water.
That's right.
And why couldn't it improve if we did that?
The main sources of contamination are upstream of the site.
Okay.
So while council's made a lot of inroads into making a lot of awareness for the industry, so council spent a lot of time on that to try and actually focus on source control. There will still be people that are polluting, and there's still a lot of historical sediments, contamination that'll still be coming through. There'll still be things coming off, like your normal urban runoff with your metals that are involved with that. If you then look at a catchment which is industrial, you've then got big trucks, bigger brakes, bigger tyres, so the amount of contaminants coming off is increased. So that needs to be dealt with. The stuff on the Addington Brook, but by that stage, that's just where you can see it. That makes sense.
So apologies. Would there be potential for further plant life to actually try and mitigate or even just slowly create a healthy waterway, even adding to that?
Yeah, I mean, once the bulk of it's taken out, once you get rid of that first flush, which is what the treatment device will take out, then yeah, this things we're putting in now will assist in that. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks very much for that presentation. I'm just curious about kind of why now, why this wasn't done years ago. You know, just looking through the history. You know, is it a perfect moment in time to do it, or what's the rationale behind now?
Yeah, well, I guess it has been sparked mostly ahead of the treatment device. You know, if you're going to do something, you might as well make sure you focus on both parts. But you're right. I mean, possibly in the good old days, parks and waterways were one team. So when the master plan, the management plan put together, there may have been a bit more synergy going on, but then with division of teams, some of that knowledge may have been lost. We've got a lot of waterways within the city that need a lot of work. Priorities. This one, it's not like it's got any structures that are falling or failing that are going to cause a lot of flooding within residential areas, so therefore it would be pushed down the priority list. But as you said, timing, this is probably just the perfect timing ahead of the treatment works, treatment plant, sorry.
Okay. And yeah, just talking about improving water quality, I may have missed this, but is there any reason why we wouldn't try and treat the water before it, you know, from when it leaves the industrial area to where it sort of enters the stream, if there was some sort of, yeah.
Yeah, so again, there are a lot of council staff that are working with industry to try and install source control. That'll cover off, you know, your kind of roofs and hard stand areas. You're still going to get quite a bit of, you know, wind blowing stuff, tyres, brakes, just the usual kind of sources of contamination on the actual roads. That'll still then wash off into sumps, which then goes into the pipe network and into the waterway.
Okay. Right, thank you.
So I might just put my oar in here, that what you're going to build upstream of the sale yards, so to speak, in there, that's where you'll put what I would call a first flush basin. Is that?
Yeah. Yeah, essentially, yes.
And so if that was done, it would satisfy all our clean water things that we've got to do. to a fairly good extent, I'd imagine. Yeah, I know they want to do this first, but what I'm just following along from what Kelly's doing. If we do all this, spend all this money here, we're not going to change the contaminated water at all, unless if we did fix the contamination first, because that's our main thrust, to stop contaminated water getting into the river. But I know that's coming. Someone will be designing it somewhere along the line.
Yep.
Yeah,
it's already through, I think, prelim design.
It's similar, Kelly, to what's happening down at that Waitaki Basin. The main stormwater outfall for all of Aranui comes down a pipe and will go into that, and it fixes all the stuff off roads and oil leaks and all sorts of things.
So, Mayor, is the question, when is the first flush basin works actually going to be undertaken?
Can I just say, I already asked that, and the thing is that Grant told me that there's no point doing the first flush until the Addington Brook is clean of sediment. And you're implying that we should do the first flush first so that clean water is coming in when we do the Addington Brook. So just need clarification on the order.
No, I'm just doing it for clarity for Kelly to say that the water that comes off the roof of all the factories is all coming down the pipe and off the roads and sort of things like that. We're looking after factories and working with industrial people as best we can. We've still got the stuff off roads, which is going to happen regardless. The council are working on the first flush basin, which will happen, but in my view, I think that needs to happen before we do this. I think this is fantastic.
You're not in debate, Mayor. Yeah.
All right, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, so until you've done the first flush device, it's not going to remove the contamination from the water. But if you don't do this, you're still going to end up with sediment mobilisation every time it rains. It's still going to keep wearing away at the banks. It's going to keep eroding around all the trees. I don't think it's going to be too long till it starts to eat away the netball courts. The last rain event, there was quite a major slump through there. As soon as you start to get a few slumps, the bank's steeping up, it gets saturated, it's just going to keep going. So you could continue it. Again, there's a risk appetite for whether it's going to be fenced off. So you just have to weigh those up, whether you want to delay it or not.
So, okay, thank you. I've got Timothy.
Thank you. I walk this every week and sometimes twice a week with the dog, and I far prefer going on the south side, and there's good bridges, etc. And there's tracks rather. We've got great paths around the Hagley Park, which are fantastic for all, but some of us just prefer to kind of go the tracks rather than that. The first flush doesn't really take out all contaminants in the sense that it's more about sediment, isn't it?
No, it'll take out. I mean, you get a lot of contaminants binding to sediment.
Okay.
Yep. So if you take the first flush out, then theoretically that takes care of most of it.
If we could get a time frame for that works, that'd be good as well. Thanks.
Yep.
I'm just concerned because when I park at the Rickham roundabout and I walk through the rougher area there, and I climb over the fence, which you're not meant to, and I go across a bridge which you can't get to anymore because of the fences, because I like doing that, and that's fine. My concern is, if this work's done here, is there still a fence going to be put in there? I just kind of think because if we're talking fatalities, we've had them in the Avon, we've had them in the Heathcote, we've had them in the Rickerton stream and the brook. So what's the policy with regards to fencing off our waterways? Because if you look at the Addington Brook, when it goes to the north side of Rickerton Ave, it's a beautiful area with a path down right by the water, and it's very secluded, and it's lovely by the Rose Garden. We have the Summer Theatre there, so you could almost argue the same thing with the Rickerton stream, because you've got a lot of people there now the lights are there, and they've always really been there, but at the cricket. But when we have summer theatres, etc., by the Rose Garden, you could argue the same thing. Obviously, they wouldn't be intoxicated. They really just have ice creams instead. But I'm just wondering what the policy is there, and what is...
As far as policy goes, I don't believe council has a policy. That's a bit of a can of worms. If you want to try and fence off all your waterways, you've got a number of waterways through the city. I don't believe we go there. I don't think there's a requirement.
So what's the risk? What would be the... So if this work goes ahead, is it going to be fenced off or not?
No.
So,
That's the intention.
So we take a risk-based approach to fencing of waterways. So, for example, some people may be aware of where we've got steep-sided drains and we've got school children crossing bridges. We've fenced a short section adjacent to those bridges.
Yep.
So no, we don't have a black and white. We're going to fence all our streams, which would be absurd in Christchurch. But we do take a risk-based approach, and that's the driver here. Is it's steep-sided, and if someone falls down and they're not in good shape, they won't be able to get out. But the grading that's been described removes the need for a fence and reduces the risk considerably.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Sarah?
Thank you. Most of my questions have been asked, which is great. Just a quick one on the trees themselves that are being removed. So I know when we did the Lincoln Road bus lanes, that we were talking about removing trees, and I know that some of the ones in here are quite significant size or sort of mature size, but some of the trees that were counted officially as trees by the arborist were what most people would call shrubs. But because they had a potential to grow high eventually, they had to be counted as trees. I'm just wondering how many kind of fall into that actually not particularly nice scrubby things. You know, it's that, you know what I mean?
Depends who you ask. If you ask a tui, they might think it's quite nice. There's no genuine definition of what is a tree and what is not a tree. But I mean, in terms of practical management, we class a tree as something that has to be climbed, that you cannot maintain or manage from the ground.
Yeah.
And it typically comes in around 6 to 7 meters tall.
Yeah. See,
whether it's at maturity or not.
Okay. Yeah. So it's the potential for it to get that high.
Yeah.
As a species rather than Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
The sedimentation, and we've been talking around the table about there being pollution and sedimentation, but actually, when it comes to waterways, sedimentation is a type of pollution. So it's actually one of the components, and it's the main component along Eddington Brook. So while the industrial stuff and the road runoff and the vulcanised rubber and the copper brake pads and those kind of things come from that area, you need both pieces of work to actually improve the water enough to go into the river. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you, Victoria.
Thank you for that presentation. My question is about deliverability and whether you've got capacity to deliver this project at the moment in your current program. And perhaps a secondary question to that is, are you pushing something else back so that you can push this one forward?
This is quite specialist work. So there is always, this would probably sit perhaps outside the HDM panel. Being working around the trees, it is very specialised type stuff. We're not going to probably know the market until we actually go out and have a bit of a feel around and see what's out there. And no, we're not pushing anything else out.
Perhaps the final question then is, I appreciate that you don't have any exact costings, but how confident are you that this project can be done within the current budget line provision that we've got? Or are we going to see you back here looking for more money for it?
The difficulty we have is when these projects are scoped, we haven't done an investigation. So you may see me back, if I'm being honest.
You also said there might be savings.
That's the difficulty. So as I said, I've allowed for 980 grand for contaminated land removal. I'm hoping that will be vastly reduced, but then we are probably going to put in more trees, which then may push the cost up. Once I've gone out to market for this first separable portion, I'll have better confidence in what it's going to be.
And I've got Yanni next. Sorry.
Thank you. And look, I mean, thank you for the work that you've done on it. Like, it is a really amazing presentation and master plan. I'm just trying to sort of understand a few things around the cost. So my understanding of the budget, it's currently in the 25 year, where the majority of the money is going to be spent. So I'm just trying to understand the process around, like, is this going to be an annual plan change around timing? Because we've just had the sheet and there's nothing shown changed in the annual plan. So I'm trying to understand how the budget's working on this.
I think there was something mentioned recently about annual plan change.
Okay. I mean, I'm only looking at the spreadsheet that got sent around
to bring it forward.
Sent around yesterday. That doesn't have this project coming back.
ideally, it would be covered by a bring back.
Right.
Okay, you're good.
So, okay. So does that mean we need to substitute other things so that we can afford to do it?
So that's not for the officer
Right.
at this stage.
Okay. Well,
Okay, so
So I'll just clarify, we're proposing to bring back this and begin it this year, so begin construction this financial year, so March, April 2023.
right. So I guess what I'm kind of at a higher level, what I'm concerned about is at a time when we've been told we've got the most significant budget pressure that we've ever faced in recent history, with for all sorts of reasons, that we're bringing forward a project into the time that we can possibly least afford to do it.
So this is within the budget this year, and related to the question that Councillor Henstock answered, are we pushing anything out? We have already pushed some things out because of consenting difficulties with Environment Canterbury within the stormwater program. So there's plenty of room within the broader stormwater program this year to do this work. And if we didn't do this work, then we'd have to fence it. So it's the choice for councillors to make.
And not just trying to understand the reason why we need to fence it. Like, we haven't heard from the coroner's inquiry. So wouldn't it be better to wait until we get the coroner's recommendation?
Again, that's a risk-based approach that we take to the to fencing our waterways. So it's an assessment of the risk.
And do we just the hazardous material? Sorry, you may have mentioned it, but in other projects that we've done around land drainage, we've left the hazardous material in situ. So what's the hazardous material that we're removing, and why doesn't it need to be removed?
Again, it's just got your normal metal contamination. If parks were happy for us to leave contaminated material within Hagley Park, that would be fine. We haven't had those discussions with them yet.
Is it
right?
Sorry, is it material that's in the waterway, or is it?
Yes, it'd be both the sediment as well as where we're cutting their banks. So where we're going from 1 to 1 to 1 and 4, we'll be removing some of that. That's where we've found pockets of stuff. Not so much actually within the waterway itself, which was quite surprising.
Yeah.
So yes, there will be some contaminated material there.
And just the only other thing I wanted to ask is in terms of the staging, could we do obviously the stage where the fence is going is the netball to Hagley Oval. That's the one where we don't have fences at the moment.
We don't have fences around any of Addington Brook yet.
Right. But that's so could we do we could do it in 2 stages?
Yeah, so the intention was to do the netball to the oval, just because there's no tree removal required.
Right.
Maybe more palatable to the community if they're not seeing us just rush in there with chainsaws first thing.
So I guess
that's what your presentation said, that you would do it in 2 stages.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, but just the other point was just around the public consultation. I see that this is medium significance, and I really appreciate that you've sought views from some of the interested parties. But I'm just trying to understand: is when this goes to detailed design, is this going to go out for public consultation where people can raise their views?
Yeah, sorry, I should have
Can I
covered
answer that?
Oh,
Yeah. This is entirely consistent with the master plan and the Hagley Park management plan, so there is no need to specifically go out about improving the waterways. It's what we've already told people we are going to do.
When did we consult on those?
Well, the management plan and the master plan were adopted by council in 2007, so you could argue we're 15 years overdue.
We're getting there though.
Okay, so thank you, Yanni. I've got a question. Why? I know you want to get some stuff done in this financial year, but why would you start playing in the middle of a park on a drain brook when it's probably going to be the wettest time of the year? Would we not be better, if we were going to do it, to be starting in October or something? Just putting my ex-old contractor's hat on, when life would be a lot easier than when it's hosing down. And I'm happy to move it, by the way. And Sam's happy to second it.
Yeah, you're right. It is.
With the addition.
It is starting to move into winter. However, we won't have to deal so much with groundwater. I mean, it's just going to be storm flows we need to manage, and rain events happen all through the year. It's not like we've got a lot of groundwater we've got to manage.
No, it drives a chip. And just before I let Pauline talk, I've got to point out that I've put in that item number 5 that people need to just be aware of if I'm moving it and Sam seconding it. Is that okay? Pauline, you had a question?
My question is there any other funding that would help us with this, like the government freshwater funding or anything that we could get some assistance with, because it's an incredibly worthy project for water quality and environmental enhancement, and as you say, all the 6 values. Is there anywhere that we could get some partner funding?
We haven't looked for it at this stage.
Oh, really?
Yep,
Can we look for it?
we can.
No, I think that we've done that one.
Sorry.
But there must be other funds out there at the moment. Okay, and what does it mean for this project if number 5, if we have to put this through the annual plan? Obviously, it means you won't be able to start in March.
That's correct.
So if it's been pushed out, then yeah,
And so, what's the implication of that?
we're back to
Fencing.
the risk mitigation. And if
So
we have to
that would
fence it,
be-
we'll fence it.
That would trigger fencing.
Potentially, yeah.
Okay.
So you've just put that in rather than as an amendment. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just letting people know that I put it in there so that. Sarah.
Yeah, actually, that was going to be my question too. So Phil, it just with putting that in, your intention is to defer any work on the project until we've made other decisions. Is that right?
What I've put it in there, and it's sort of starting to get into a bit of I won't say debate. The only reason I put it in there, that this is a great project, a great report, well presented. There's no doubt it has to be done in my mind. It's no problem. But coming into what's going to happen in our briefing this afternoon on the start of the annual plan process, I'm just looking at we've got to really cut our cloth to what we do, and everything that comes past our eyes, we should say, "Oh, is this absolutely necessary?" Because we're heading into a bit of strife coming up, I think. So that's the only reason I put it in there. Not to flag it altogether, just to put it to one side and look at it through the annual plan process.
So, because there's 2 different things. So we would normally look at all of the projects as part of the annual plan anyway. I wouldn't want to be putting off the early work on this. That's next March and April and things. We would look at the timing of the other budget during the annual plan anyway, but this defers the early work. So I'm just asking if you can put number 5 separately. I'm still happy to look at it during the annual plan, but I think that as a resolution, I'm not happy to vote for that. So if you could just put number 5 separately, because it's an effective deferral of the project, which I don't want to do.
So okay. So the early works, you're talking about detailed planning, detailed design.
Yes, it means they can't, if they have to wait until anything's confirmed next June, then staff won't be able to do any more work on this, and I'm not happy with that. So I'm just asking that you put number 5 separately so they can get on with the project.
I think you should do that. Yeah.
Okay. Right, now we go again. Sarah, Tim, and then.
So with the fencing.
No, it's not debate.
No, it's not
With
debate.
what would be the cost of fencing, and if it were fencing, as in if it was delayed and number 5 went through and it was delayed and we decided we had to fence, I'm presuming then it would be removed once the work started. So it's kind of like a pointless process. But has there been an estimate on the cost of the fencing that would be removed once it's done?
Not by me.
So the fencing around Riccarton Stream was in the order of about 50 to 60k.
Yeah. Very nice fence, by the way.
Yeah, well, we have to do everything in a woodland context, but it's Addington Brook's a lot larger. You're probably talking about 200k.
Cool. Thank you.
And of course, I bring you back to the management plan, and the master plan requires us to do this work, so we'd then be pulling the fence out.
So thank you.
Aaron and Yanni.
So, but if the idea of the fence is to show there's a danger to stop people falling in, wouldn't you, and the works we're going to start next spring, summer to do the brook, wouldn't you just bang around Waratahs and emergency tape like you would for a normal when there's a hazard?
Put some cones.
Like versus a $200,000 fence, you'd do it like a $2,000 fence?
Look, it all depends on the decision that's made. And to be really frank about it, I mean, if a decision is made to progress the works, within a reasonable time frame, we're not putting a fence up. Right, there hasn't been a fence there ever. So we just have to manage the risk that we've had for a long time.
But potentially, if there's a bit you're really worried about, you put up emergency tape and say caution here.
Yeah, and we can, it's an operational job for staff. And as I said earlier, the reason that we took this step was because of the change in the activity within Hagley Park, in particular, the nighttime activity. And people are drinking and, large crowds, and people do silly things. So that was the only reason that we responded the way we did.
I don't understand how we can start this project with $78,000 on budget for this current financial year. So, we don't even have the money to start in March, April. So I'm not sure, just because of the new resolution that's been put, which seems to make logical sense, I'm missing something in terms of how this project can start with $78,000. We don't have money on this financial year to do this project.
Can you answer the question, please, Alan?
That's what we need to do.
So what we would do a bring back through the PMO.
But nothing in our we've just received all the papers yesterday on the draft annual plan. There's not even a bring back in the draft annual plan that we're considering in our workshop.
We haven't put anything in the draft annual plan or in this year's yet. We've brought this paper to council. So we need a decision from this council on what you would like to do, and then we will put in place the change requests. And it is all within the stormwater program, as we've explained. So some projects have been deferred, and this one we would like to bring forward, and that's what the paper is before you today.
I don't understand why we wouldn't be asked to make the financial contribution today, so that it's clear when we adopt this what that means.
I wonder if I could make a suggestion to elected members, because I feel like we might be going round in circles. We do have another council meeting on the
December
7th of
7th.
December. I suggest you might want to leave this paper on the table, have your discussion this afternoon, and that will at least then inform you in relation to what you might do, and you can then make a considered view on the 7th. Entirely up to you, members.
I reckon just put it.
I think that's a good idea.
Request through the chair that you include in the resolution that staff explore other avenues for partner funding as well.
Okay,
You happy with that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you.
Can I just check also who approves the bring back request?
Sorry, Yanni?
Who approves the bring back request? Like, it's not a change request over 5 million would normally come to us. This isn't a change request, this is a bring back request, so who approves it?
It comes up through the PMO.
That's
I
probably
think it
us
just
is
goes
what we're
to
doing now.
executive leadership team.
So, because it's over 5 million, it would come to council.
Like, just picking up on the point that the chief executive made, if that's the case, then wouldn't it be better to bring it together so that we can make that decision?
I think going from what the chief executive said, let's let it sit on the table until after we've got the first lot of the annual plan briefings and stuff that are heading down our way this afternoon. It'll give us a lot more clarity on where we are heading, I'm sure, and then we can bring it back to the next council meeting.
Yeah, and it won't then delay the project if you decide to proceed.
What we could also do, which might be helpful, is get an estimate for what that first stage would cost.
That would be good. Yeah.
And so that you can understand what the first stage is and then what the second stage is, because the first stage would be in this financial year and the second stage the following financial year.
And the first stage sounds like it would be considerably lesser.
Yes, it would.
There's no tree removal. And
That's correct.
And it would be good because that would give us an idea of how it's all going to look as well, and for the public.
So I'd just like Sam to because of our standing orders, she just needs to read the item.
So the
out.
item's moved and seconded, so we just need a procedural motion for the item to lie on the table and not be further discussed at this meeting.
Can I move a procedural that the matter be put without further debate? If so, I do.
Is that what you want to?
Yeah, that is what I want to do. Yeah.
So you just need a seconder for that?
Would someone second that? Yeah,
There you are.
Tyler.
Second.
So where does that leave us now?
So what then?
Put it to the debate. Oh, sorry, vote on that.
Voting on the procedural.
Vote on the procedural motion.
We are now voting on Jake and Tyler's procedural motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against?
Oh, I think you're going to need to. I can't tell from that. Just raise of hands, please.
Those against?
Those four. Do the four.
Can someone just please read the actual resolution and make it really clear
Read out what we're getting here.
voting?
Sam.
So moved by Councillor McLennan and seconded by Councillor Harrison-Hunt that the motion under debate should now be put.
We've still got number 5 in there that we wanted to put separately. That's that.
Separate.
Yeah, we'll put that
Sorry,
separate.
can it just be clear? The procedural motion that we're voting on is to have no debate.
No, it's to go to debate now.
Yeah.
Shall we have a cup of tea and come back and think about it?
Yeah.
Yes, you might want to suggest that.
How's about we're 3/4 of an hour after when we were going to stop and have a break, and we're all probably wanting to do something. How's about we have 10 minutes chit chat about it, and then we'll come back and make a decision. How's that? Okay, so we'll come back.
10 minutes.
Yeah, adjourn, and we'll come back at 10:02.
You must have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 easily. They're all
Easily.
back.
Great news. We're back?
Yeah.
We're good. We're back. Great news. We have a solution.
I'm going to withdraw my procedural.
Motion.
Yeah, and then I've got a procedural motion, which is to defer it to the Finance and Performance Committee meeting next Wednesday, which will give the team enough time to just pull together a little bit more information. That'll give us some time to consider it, and then we can have a good discussion, and that so people can actually debate it as well. So I think it's a sensible solution.
Yeah, and I'm happy
Pauline, or Jake. Yep.
Jake's
Yeah, I'll
happy to-
second it.
Yeah. So can we just get?
So there's no debate on procedural motions, you just vote.
So I'm putting this
Well,
motion.
can we just get it on the screen just so people can? Just so that people can.
Come on. There it's there.
Right, this one here.
Yep, that's it.
Right.
Okay, can you see the one that we're voting on there? Okay, so we've got a mover and a seconder. All good?
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Okay, so all those in favour of that motion?
Aye.
Against? Right, item 10.
It's carried.
Carried. Great is carried.
And a shorter presentation with the costs of the option broken up, please.
Now, this one, more or less, someone's going to...
It looks technical. It's
No, it
really,
doesn't.
it's really about
Yeah, Tim's,
a bit of a clean-up of historical
Yeah,
matters.
Tim's moving it and Pauline's seconding it. Right.
Any
All those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you, carried. Next.
Well, in all fairness, we
And
have
this one here, this is just, I won't say procedural. Jake's is happy to move this one, and Kelly's happy to second it.
it's just a technicality, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Almost a typo.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that's right. So all those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
Nice to see you too.
So we can go into public excluded now?
Yes, please. Say that.
Righto. So. Okay. Oh, good. Yeah, yeah. I'd like to move that we're going into public excluded, and Tim is seconding it. So all those in favour? Against? Thank you. Carried.